Act of Worship, your source for commentary and discussion on worship, theology, and culture. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones. Hello and welcome to the Act of Worship podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones. Thank you for joining me today as we are continuing through the Psalm project. I promise this project will be over at some point, and then I will get back to normal commentary on worship, theology, and culture. But for now, this is what we have. And so we are here today in Psalm 125. Psalm 125. We don't have that much longer to go, really. We are 5/6 of the way through it after today. So 25 more Psalms to go. Psalm 125 is, again, one of the Psalms of Ascent. It is the 6th Song of Ascent, and it begins like a confident Zion hymn. And so from the temple on Mount Zion, the Lord provides protection for his people, and that is the resounding theme of this psalm. Let me read for you these short 5 verses in Psalm 125. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be moved, but abides forever. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people from this time forth and forevermore. For the scepter of wickedness shall not rest on the land allotted to the righteous, lest the righteous stretch out their hands to do wrong. Do good, O Lord, to those who are good, and to those who are upright in their hearts. But those who turn aside to their crooked ways, the Lord will lead away with evildoers. Peace be upon Israel. I really don't have much commentary in the way of this today, but there are a few things that I want to point out. In verse 2, it speaks of the mountains. And this psalm references God protecting his people, as the mountains would have protected Jerusalem. The surrounding mountains were important in the defense of the city and picture God's protective presence. I'm reminded of 2 Kings 6 when Elisha had his vision and he prayed. He was fearful, but he prayed and he said, "Oh Lord," Elisha prayed and his eyes were open, and the Lord opened the eyes of the man that was with Elisha. Elisha knew that the Lord was on his side, and the man that was with Elisha, the Lord opened his eyes, and he was no longer fearful because he saw that the mountains around Jerusalem were full of horses and chariots and fire all around Elisha. Can you imagine that? You're afraid. Let's say in this case, he's afraid for his life. There was an army that sought to destroy him, and he opened his eyes and he saw the spiritual realm. He saw horses and chariots and fire, and he saw God's protection. And so this reference to mountains really is a picture of God protecting his people. And then we've seen this word before, scepter, in verse 3, the scepter of wickedness. The scepter, again, I've mentioned this before, it's a symbol of political and military rule. And in this case, it's pointing to the oppression of the people of God by a wicked and possibly a foreign force. And it says, on the land allotted to righteous, lest the righteous stretch out their hands to do wrong. In other words, by way of imitation or under the pressures of a corrupt government and society. And then the psalmist prays, "Do good, O Lord, to those who are good, and to the evildoers lead away. Turn aside to their crooked ways." And he says, "Peace be upon Israel." This setting is rather short. It is 3 stanzas. It is set in a 3/4 time. And so you get that swaying feeling as you hear it. But a wonderful setting to remind us of God's protection in our own lives. So here is Psalm 125 set to music. Thank you for listening today to the Act of Worship podcast. This is Dr. Jonathan Michael Jones.
Mount Zion, unmoved shall endure, whose confidence in the Lord is secure. Like hills encircling Jerusalem's round, always the Lord will his people surround. No wicked ruler for long will one's chosen domain, lest righteous man yield to evil too strong, putting their hands to commit what is wrong. Lord, to the good and the upright in heart, show goodness, but make the crooked depart. Oh, let your peace rest upon his eyes.